Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Hub. So today we're doing another team preview and we're looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now the Tampa Bay Lightning are the defending Stanley Cup champions and in my opinion still the best team in the league on paper. We're going to be looking at this team the same way we're doing all the other teams in this series, so if you haven't checked out the other videos for team previews, I suggest you do that. But starting off, we're going to look at what they've lost. Now, Tampa Bay really hasn't added anything, so we're just going to skip over that category for this video. Tampa Bay has already lost a few players. They lost Kevin Shattenkirk because he left in free agency. They've lost Jan Rutta. He might still re-sign in Tampa Bay, but it's looking unlikely with their cap situation. They've also lost Zach Bogosian and Carter Verhaeghe. Now, Bogosian played a surprisingly big role into their Stanley Cup final run. Bogosian actually did see a little bit of top pairing time. That was more so when they had injuries to guys like Ryan McDonough. Carter Verhaeghe was just a fourth line guy for them, not really a big role. Zach Bogosian, same deal. He still was a healthy scratch and really played up and down the lineup for them. So yeah, they lost those four guys, and they're likely going to have to lose more considering their cap situation, but we're going to get into that later. Now, looking at their top six is still one of the best in the National Hockey League, and if you notice, I've accounted for a few guys that are likely on their way out. But the top line of Palat, Point, and Kucherov is one of the best in the NHL. The triplets line, they call it. It was truly dominant this past playoffs. Kucherov is the best winger in the league, Point is emerging as one of the best two-way centers, and Palat is, I think, Tampa Bay's most underrated player. Everybody talks about these big-name players, but Palat constantly goes under the radar, and I think Palat brings a lot to that line, and we saw he scored some really big goals in the playoffs, and I think is a player that definitely gets underappreciated. But in that second line, you've got Yanni Gourde, Anthony Cirelli, who just had himself a near Selke-like season. I know his analytical numbers were fantastic, and if he keeps this up, he is going to get recognition for the Selke Trophy. And then Steven Stamkos. Now, Stamkos didn't play much at all in the run to the Stanley Cup due to injury, and that's kind of been the case with Stamkos throughout his career. He's constantly injured, and one has to wonder how much time he has left in his career with all these injuries. Their top six is still really good. There's a few guys I've left out intentionally. I'll touch on them later, but even with losing a few guys potentially to trades and stuff like that, their top six is still really good. A lot of high-end scoring power, but some really solid two-way players in there as well. But moving on to their top four is led by Victor Hedman, who in my opinion is the best defenseman in the NHL. Hedman is an absolute monster, a workhorse. He's great at both ends of the ice. He's actually a really good goal scorer for a defenseman. I believe he was threatening the goal scoring record in a single playoffs for a defenseman as well. So Hedman can do it all. He's the best in the league right now when it comes to his position. But there's also youngster Mikhail Sergachev. Now, Sergachev has really come into his own the last couple of years as a prolific offensive defenseman. Sergachev doesn't put up insane numbers, but you can tell he's definitely more suited in that sheltered offensive role. But as he's gotten older, he has shown a bit more defensively and is rounding out to a good two-way defender. There's also Eric Chernak, another restricted free agent just like Sergachev, and of course Ryan McDonough. McDonough is definitely more of a defensive defenseman at this stage in his career, but is still really solid and one of the best leaders in that Tampa Bay locker room. McDonough provided a lot this past playoffs and is a big key to their defense. If he ends up being a guy they have to trade, I think that would be a big blow for Tampa Bay, but their defense is still so good, I think that they could recover from it. There's also Cal Foote, who I want to talk about for a bit. He's a prospect for them. He was drafted 14th overall, and I really think that maybe we could see him push for a lineup spot for Tampa this offseason, considering what they've already lost on their blue line and what they might have to trade away. Maybe they have to trade a guy like Braden Coburn, and Cal Foote will have to step up. I think Cal Foote is a really good prospect and does have that top four potential, so I think Cal Foote could maybe, as soon as 2 or 3 years from now, be a second pairing role, or if he really progresses, maybe even a top pairing guy for them. I still think Hedman is the absolute star of that blue line though, and really rounds out that top four. Their goaltending is really good as well. Curtis McElhinney as a backup is pretty solid. He is getting older, so I don't know how much he has left in him, but you don't need that great of a backup when you have the best goaltender in the league in Andrei Vasilevskiy. Vasilevskiy is a workhorse goaltender. He played every single minute in Tampa Bay's playoff run this past season, and I truly think that if it's a 60-game schedule, Vasilevskiy can play probably around 50. So their goaltending duo is really good, carried by Vasilevskiy, and he's probably got another Vezina trophy or two in him. And who knows, maybe Tampa Bay is able to go on another run, and maybe we could see Vasilevsky get a Conn Smythe at some point in his career. He was really good in the playoffs and didn't get talked about a lot because of these other star performances by guys like Point and Hedman, but Vasilevsky was very consistent for Tampa Bay and gave them that playoff goaltending that they haven't had in a very long time. Moving on to their best players. Now, their best players are quite obvious, and some of the best players in the world, and at their positions. Hedman is the best defenseman in the league, Kucherov's the best winger in the league, Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the league, and then there's also guys like Steven Stamkos and Andre Palat. Their best players are simply sensational. They've got the best core in the National Hockey League. They can do it all, and some of these guys are prolific offensive players. Some of these guys are good two-way. They've got a little bit of everything in Tampa Bay, and it's really why they're such a good team. So their best players, they came to play this past playoffs, and it was really impressive to see. It looked like they were having fun out there. That's how good these guys are. But some of the players I want to talk about when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning is some of the restricted free agents. Now, Tampa Bay is really in a bad situation with the salary cap. Mikhail Sergachev, Anthony Cirelli, and Eric Chernak are all restricted free agents, all in need of a contract before next season. I don't know if they're going to be able to get all these guys under the books, and if they can't, these are really big blows to their lineup. Both Sergachev and Chernak are top 4 guys for them, and Cirelli is their second-line center at this point whenever Stamkos plays wing or if he's injured. So that would be really big holes to fill if they can't re-sign most of these guys, and it's really questionable if they can. I think that all 3 of those guys are fantastic. Chernak is a very underrated defensive defenseman. I already talked about the other 2 players earlier in the video, but all these guys are really key pieces for Tampa, and they need to find a way to get them signed. It's not going to be easy considering how tight they are to the salary cap, but that brings me to 2 other players that I want to talk about, in Tyler Johnson and Alex Killorn. Now, Killorn I ended up leaving out of the top 6 because I feel like he's probably going to get traded. He does have some value. You can probably get back like a second-round pick for him. His contract isn't bad. It might be a little bit long for a player of his age and his physical playing style. He just had a really good year, and that's going to be attractive to a lot of teams. So I can see Killorn getting moved since he's making, I think, about 4.5 or 4.25 or something like that. So that would free up some cap space. And then there's Tyler Johnson, who they even tried putting on waivers to see if anybody would claim him, and nobody did. And I was honestly surprised. Tyler Johnson, to me, is still a player that has that top 6 potential. And to a team that desperately needs centers, think of it, before they got Paul Stastny, I was thinking he might be a good fit in Winnipeg, for an example. It really surprised me that nobody took a flyer on Tyler Johnson. He is making $5 million, and I get that, especially in a flat cap era, could be scary to some teams considering he has had a couple down years. But I think he's a very similar type of situation as to JT Miller. Miller didn't exactly put up great totals in Tampa Bay because he wasn't getting the minutes that maybe a player of his caliber deserved. When he went to Vancouver and he was put on that top line, he really, broke out and looked like a star. I'm not saying the same will happen for Tyler Johnson if he's traded. I should say when he's traded from Tampa Bay, because it seems all but imminent. But I do think he can bounce back to that 60 center form, and I think he could still be a solid top 6 center for a team in the National Hockey League. So to me, those are 2 guys that are probably gone for Tampa Bay, and to be honest, I don't know if Tampa Bay will miss them too much. I think they'll miss Killorn more than Johnson, because Johnson's role has really been diminished with the team by guys like Yanni Gourde and Anthony Cirelli coming up, but Killorn is a unique player. He's a power forward. There was a bit of rumors of him going to Montreal, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And I don't know where I see a fit for Killorn. And maybe that's why we haven't seen these guys been moved yet. Because there's just, money is so tight in the league right now. And it's really hard to find a spot for guys that have bigger contracts. So it's going to be interesting to see what their GM, Julien Brisebois, can do with those contracts, if they can get them moved. Because if they move out those 2, that's a combined about, close to $9 million. Or $10 million, and that would probably be enough, combined with the $3 million they already have, to re-sign their restricted free agents. Keep in mind, Tampa is a tax-free state, so it's probably not going to cost as much as some people may think to get these guys re-signed. Like Sergachev would be an 8 or 7, around that $9 million defenseman if he was playing for a Canadian team. But in Tampa, we're probably going to see him take less than we're expecting, as we've seen with guys like Kucherov and Hedman. Tampa seems to get these guys on good deals, and it's part of the reason why they're still such a good team. Now, the last player that I want to talk about is their captain, Steven Stamkos. Now, there was talks that Tampa actually asked Stamkos to maybe waive his no-trade clause to see if they could work out a trade for him. I found this surprising, but also at the same time, a few people did see it coming. Now, he's been their captain for what feels like forever. He's one of the best players in the league when he's healthy. But health is the big thing with Stamkos. He played all but 2 minutes this past playoffs. He just had another major surgery. He was injured at the end of the regular season, and just every year it seems another major injury for Stamkos. He's one of the most injury-riddled players in the league, and one has to wonder how much he actually has left in him. There was talk about, maybe he could retire in a couple of years, but he has stated that he plans on playing out his contract. But I still wonder how much of that contract he's actually going to play. Yes, he might still be active for the next 6 years, but how much of those 82-game schedules is he actually going to play? So, if he was healthy, his contract is actually really good, and Tampa wouldn't be considering moving him. I think he's only getting around $8 million or 8.5. But considering how injured he is, and Tampa already proved that they can win without him, I don't know how much longer Stamkos stays in Tampa. That's if he doesn't move his no-trade clause. Now, he does have a full no-trade clause, and he said no, he doesn't want to go. So Stamkos could be staying in Tampa for the entirety of the contract, and that's probably the likely scenario. But it really does seem like Tampa's desperate to move money if they were going to ask him to waive his no-trade clause, because that would be the play then. You trade Stamkos, you free up that money, you sign the restricted free agents. And to be honest, if I was a team, I don't know if I would give up a lot for Stamkos. Just that bill of health is way too questionable. So it's going to be interesting to see if Stamkos can stay healthy for an entire year and maybe prove that he can, still be a reliable piece for Tampa and that he's needed in Tampa. To me, Stamkos is still one of the best players in the league, like I said, but the question's starting to be asked of if Tampa actually needs him. They've got great centers already, like Point and Cirelli and Yanni Gourde, Blake Coleman. So is Stamkos' time in Tampa Bay coming to an end? Will he eventually move his trade clause? I don't know, to be honest. I'm hoping Stamkos can stay healthy and have a big year, because I really do like Steven Stamkos, and it's clear he wants to stay in Tampa Bay, but who knows if the team wants to keep him long term. But finally, the category that I would put this team in would definitely be favorite. Now, they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. Of course, they're going to be classified as a favorite. Even with all the pieces that they've lost and going to lose, they're still going to be a great team. They've still got so much depth, so much skill, so much star power, and still probably the best team in the NHL on paper. I don't know if they can go back-to-back. It's certainly possible. Pittsburgh did it, and I still think this Tampa Bay roster is better than Pittsburgh's roster on paper. There's some real franchise talents here, some real key character guys like Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. They did lose some character in guys like Zach Bogosian, lost some of that grit, but that doesn't mean they can't pick it back up at the trade deadline. They did keep around Patrick Maroon, and that's character and grit for you. So I still think Tampa Bay is in a really good position. I still think they're going to be a Stanley Cup contender for years to come. They're a great team. I could see them potentially going back-to-back, and I could still see them making the Stanley Cup final and maybe losing to a Colorado or Vegas. But they're still a cup favorite in my opinion, and going to be for a long time. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.